Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site, we have Vlad Panchenko, co-founder and CEO of Portal.ai, as well as Kevin Simzer, COO of Trend Micro. We are here to discuss what will future-proof the digital economy and drive its long-term success. It's great to have the both of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. And there's so many overlapping themes here, right? Mm-hmm. Whether we're talking about all these new fun emerging technologies, the vulnerabilities, cybersecurity challenges that it presents, and then getting to future-proofing and long-term solutions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's exciting times. Everybody's certainly got a lot of euphoria in and around AI, and we totally get that. From a cybersecurity perspective at Trend, what we've tended to often try to follow and think about are those big infrastructure changes that are going on. We followed it whenever data centers were being modernized. We followed it when hyperscalers were emerging with public cloud. And now, by far, the biggest in my lifetime anyway, all things AI, it creates tremendous opportunity for us as practitioners and wanting to just innovate and do cool things. But it also creates opportunities for threat actors and bad people, right? And that's the dilemma, making sure that cybersecurity is built in.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point, Vlad, that the digital economy, coordinating all this is a huge challenge.
All the companies I built before, they were built first on trust. So I had to learn how to make people trust each other, trust the platform, and that's half of that is cybersecurity, because this is what we have to handle. But with the vertical knowledge of people who know how to do it and AI on top of it, I think we will communicate it properly.
Yeah, and we were talking about this off camera, and I want to bring it up again. There's definitely a lot of use cases and efficiencies with leveraging these emerging technologies, right? One example is using AI to code. Now, what if you don't have that code, that core experience? How do you identify where there's an issue, or any tech role that can be made more efficient?
I have a wonderful experience from yesterday when I built a website overnight for the multi-billion-dollar company who wanted a very specific website for them using our product, and closed the deal. So, and I have never coded even 2 weeks ago. So,
wow.
Will that have all the vulnerability issues on top of it? For sure. But I closed the deal, and then people who know what to do and how to adjust, they will come there. But it simplifies my job and makes it much more efficient.
Yeah, and will the both of you also develop your models and structure with a cyber privacy first mindset?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We really want to be always thinking about making sure that cybersecurity is thought about up front. I'm an eternal optimist, and I'm excited about AI, and I believe that actually the code that's generated from these modern models, it's going to get better and better, and we can make sure that cybersecurity is thought about, inside. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take a lot of training of these models, and it's going to take a lot of data over time in order to make sure that these models are in fact producing high quality code.
Oh, I have another experience from my life about this, because I think it's going to happen much faster. If you remember the Dota 2, then when they built an AI model to play the video game, the most popular esports game, they just built the computer, and then they started to train the model. And in the first year, it could play only 1-on-1 or 2x2. But then the next year, done. So it's training and self-training much faster with the oversight of people who know what's happening. Yeah. The time is squeezed.
Well, I think another benefit of it too is, at least the way that I use it, I think it leads you to better research because you have time to focus on it, right? It's a game changer.
No.
Yeah.
I think the focus is an interesting angle on all of this, where we see many customers that are certainly focusing a lot of AI projects on customer support, and it allows them to maybe take a lot of the more trivial, mundane issues off the table. AI is automatically taking care of some of those issues, and then their team can focus in on the more challenging and sophisticated ones, right? So it does allow you to, like you said, it allows you to actually focus in on maybe the stuff that really, really matters. The same with engineering, same with developing code. We can move our highly skilled people onto things that are absolutely critical to the business.
Yeah.
And then in the next 3 months, move them again. And in the next 3 months, move them again. Because they will train the model, and in 3 months, they can do even a better job.
I think a big cross current here too is data stewardship and governance, right? Regardless of where you sit within the organization, regardless of what sector you're in, rather than looking at it as vertical versus horizontal, as an example, that's a key component across all models, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Like again, from the experience, what added a couple of zeros now for the crypto industry was the regulation. So we are, I think, still we are in times of the Wild West with AI. Well, yes, but what will add even more zeros and more global adoption and will create much more value for the average people would be the regulation for sure.
I mean, we saw that happen with digital assets, right? The brain drain that went elsewhere is coming back. Offices are being reestablished in the digital asset space here. You're seeing DeFi and TradFi integrate even more from the Genius Act, and then once we get the Clarity Act, fingers crossed, it just, I mean, the global adoption happens at scale when we have a framework in place.
We definitely get a chance to see that in the seat that I sit in with Trend, because half of our business actually comes from the East and half from the West. So whenever you think about deploying a system like this, you do have to think about, well, how will this regulatory framework work on a global scale, right?
Yeah.
And because we truly, truly need this technology to be adopted everywhere.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of in that place now where there's rapid changes. These are incredibly complex systems. You have the human factors, which, as I understand it, the human still is the most vulnerable part of the cybersecurity chain. We're, trying to understand what framework will look like so we can have compliance controls in place, and finding that balance. And by the way, being able to communicate that across the enterprise is really key to advance everyone's priorities.
We always like to say, we trust all of our employees. We have to trust, inherently trust them. We just can't rely on them to make maybe the correct decision each time, right? Because they're being presented with so many different, opportunities where they can click on links or do things. It's not the malicious actor that's, it's more of the accidental stuff, right? That you have to be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Sorry, Jill, back on the data element, I think it's really, really important. A lot of people are thinking about data and how important it is going to be, and I share that view. If you think about needing to be able to train these models, you really have to have a good sense of your entire data stack and the pedigree of it. And but a lot of people think of it, it's a one-time thing. You take the data and you just train the model. But the reality is the data changes on a regular basis. So you have to actually build the process and the systems to be able to constantly be training the model with fresh data. So, there is going to be some work as we sort of vacuum up data from across the enterprise in order to get a really, really solid model in place.
Yeah, and that's what you were alluding to before, right? By constantly doing something new every 3 months or so.
Yeah, constantly like retraining the team of beautiful human beings, but the model is being retrained like with every act, and that's we're talking about 1,000 times a day, because the context is the king. Like in my experience and the teams of hundreds of people, like malicious acts were maybe 1%, 99%. The problem was communication. So especially when there are like 2, 3, 4 people involved, it's like it's a very bad like mathematical error, which is usually always involved. But if we can train the models, communicate better, feed it with the fresh data and context, the results are like unbelievable, because we have smart people, we have people who want to do something, but if they fail, it's usually because of the misunderstanding.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the point I was making before, that understanding your audience and getting the buy-in, right? If I'm talking to a group of policymakers, I'm going to address it one way. If I'm talking to the business, that's a different conversation. If I'm talking to the tech folks that are enabling this, and all those different sources and stakeholders being able to understand each other's priorities, right? So if you have, your tech team and they need more testing, or they don't want to, get all those failure reports that are inevitably going to come, like how do you make the business understand that, right?
We actually built the infrastructure for that. So it now also works, we call it multiplayer, But initially, it deeply analyzes and builds the human models, and then it helps you to communicate to me in the most efficient way for us both to understand what we want to say, and then talk that back. It's now working almost like live, so there is no ping, but this is exactly what you want, and now it's multiplayer with 3 or 4 people. When it's the board of directors, you can feed all of them and then communicate in a much better and efficient way. That's what AI is built for.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine you agree with that as well. Making sure you get the right buy-in with the stakeholders that are going to help you, advance your cause.
And it's complicated stuff, and that everybody's working on, and you start to think of all this unstructured data that you're trying to get aligned around. But eventually, it's multimodal as well, right?
Yep.
It's all different formats, video format and text and email and all these different formats, and trying to actually make sense of it all.
So what we're working with now, would you say it is as transformative as the internet was, or it's not something that's linear, right? Or they're transformative in different ways? We know obviously more now than we did then, but would you say that they're equally as revolutionary?
Well, we were talking off camera that I ended up in the Bay Area right during whenever the bubble was bursting. So the formation of the internet, so I was in the Bay Area from '98 until 2001. And so I got to see it firsthand. This, in my mind, is far more transformative, just far more. It just touches everything about a business, everything about a government has the potential to offer up so much promise. So I think it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, so when we think about it from a cybersecurity perspective, because as much as the technology is evolving, so does, the planning, mitigation, and responsibilities of that team. Is the workforce caught up for that? Is there more upskilling that needs to take place? Or do we have the right people that can manage cyber in today's day and age?
Yeah, I think we are still in this early innings, the early stages of this, and there's been a great deal of enthusiasm and a lot of top-down pressure in order to get AI projects going. So I think when that type of top-down pressure happens, I don't think we're fully ready for it. But there's projects that are happening and whatnot, and I think gradually we will in fact catch up and get figured out what you need to have in place in terms of guardrails and things that you need to be thinking about as you're restructuring your entire enterprise in order to accommodate this promise.
Yeah.
Well, if I may respectfully disagree, but we don't have the choice. So there is no time for that.
Yeah.
So whoever will capture the market first, leverage AI and use it, they will have like 90% of the market. The rest will just have the 10, and we're talking about a year. So I understand, and I've learned my lessons with cybersec, but there is no time. This is too powerful with the technology. It really simplifies the communication, the products, the value creation. So, but
I'm agreeing.
I think we're in agreement there. It's just, do we have the workforce that is properly skilled
that's in place
to manage these threats?
Yeah.
We have AI tools, which we have the infrastructure to communicate the knowledge of those tools feed by your knowledge, so that workforce can actually do what we want to do.
Yeah, you have something in your notes here, why crisis clarity builds better products.
That's how I roll. So.
What was an example of that? Or whether it's your example or just industry example.
No. It was always something like a new technology appearing. Like before, it was crypto, where we leverage and build the marketplace. Before that, there was a digital items trading. We built on top of that the exchange. Every time nobody knew what it is. So the banks closed my accounts because they couldn't believe that we're trading digital items for like hundreds of millions of dollars. So we had to build trust with banks, with customers, and a lot of that cybersecurity, which always failed. We're gonna have that at this size worldwide, especially with this, because even 1% of malicious people will leverage the same technologies to get to us. So time and pressure we have, but this is how we build.
Yeah. Well, I think the guardrails will certainly be helpful, but at the end of the day, you're not going to legislate away bad actors, right?
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about AI, digital assets, 10, 15 years from now, there'll be something else that we're talking about that's getting its vulnerabilities exposed. And I think that's part of that balancing act of not stifling innovation, but pro-responsible innovation, because it can happen.
Totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. And, back to our digital asset example before, we saw what happens with it when there is a framework in place, and you can understand, like, how do you align your compliance to, match with those guardrails, because regulation by enforcement is never the answer. So, and you're not going to stop innovating, right?
We're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I said, like it was with crypto, we didn't stop innovating. We created products, infrastructures, but the legislation and regulation added a couple of zeros to the industry. But it had to come not in the day one, but like in year 2. So the same is happening right now with AI, and happy I am. But we're going to fight a little bit more.
Yes, we certainly will. It's great to have the both of you with us. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.